I'd like to call the meeting of the Metro North Long Island Railroad Committee to order. We have three public speakers. First, Tony Botalico.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me to speak today. I came here today to speak on the recent report that was issued by the Comptroller's Office, which is both insulting to the intelligence of every man and woman who works on the Metro-North Railroad, whether they are represented, non-agreement, senior management, or mid-level management. This report was nothing more than an attempt to grab headlines at the expense and integrity and hard work we put in every day to represent the finest commuter railroad in the nation. This board, as constituted, has an obligation to the taxpayer and the public. But the board also has an obligation to the men and women who have built and reshaped the system over the last 29 years. It is time that this board shows its senior managers, its employees, that it is on the same team and will speak out and rebut this politically motivated report for what it really is: spin and headline grabbing and lacking in any substance. After sitting on the board with many of you and participating as the first labor rep to ever sit on the audit committee, there is one thing that separated us from the politicians and the media they use to try to trash all that's good at Metro-North and the LIRR for the sake of headlines and their re-elections. It was our ability to speak out against unsubstantiated, misleading reports and defend the truth. Many of you know that when management was wrongly blamed for problems that occurred during snowstorms, floods, shortages of equipment, we at the Association of Commuter Railroad employees have been the first to come to the defense of our managers and our senior leadership team. We did that because it was the right thing to do when the truth was manipulated and blame was placed where it did not belong. When reports like this are allowed to be spun in the way this was spun, we all have an obligation to speak up. If we don't, then everything we have worked for in the last 29 years is doomed for failure. Morale of the management staff is the first to suffer, then the employees suffer, and in the end the product delivered to the public and the taxpayer ends up back in the day when the private railroads ran the service. Those of you who don't think that can happen again, or this does not fall into the same fact pattern, need to be reminded of the animosity and the culture that can only be destroyed as company destroying in the past. In closing, I remind you all of the dangers that exist if this board fails in its obligations to its senior managers and its employees, whether represented or non-represented, by remaining silent when the truth is manipulated. I want to thank you again on behalf of all my members, conductors, engineers. We wish you all a very happy and healthy Thanksgiving.
Okay. Next, Mike Doyle.
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the Metro North and Long Island committee members. No one condones fraudulent behavior, and it should rightfully be weeded out and condemned. However, no one should be accused of fraudulent behavior, especially in a public arena, without a solid basis. The New York State Comptroller's Office recently did a serious disservice to the MTA and Metro-North Railroad by leveling unsupported allegations of fraud that were repeated in the echo chamber of the media as if these hollow assertions were fact. We are frankly sick and tired of being a punching bag for any politician who wants sensational headlines to rail against our employees. At the same time, other politicians are forcing us to do more and more with less and less funding. Metro-North has long been recognized as the premier commuter railroad in the country. We have accomplished this through your support and management and labor's commitment to meeting our goals year after year. The dedication of our railroad to get through last winter, Hurricane Irene, and the recent snowstorm, is a testament to the dedication of our agreement and non-agreement workforce. Our employees, both management and labor, run the railroad 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, around weddings, birthdays, holidays, sports events, births and deaths, major weather disruptions, and they do it because they are dedicated to providing transportation services to the public. We always tell our members that their efforts and dedication are appreciated. When a political entity makes unwarranted allegations against us, we need to know that the MTA Board has our back. You have asked us time and again to do more with less and less, and we have responded to your request every time. This report is an insult to the Board, to the MTA, to President Permit and his staff, and to all Metro-North employees, in particular the 30 individuals connected with the Singleman construction crew. To allege that practices are, quote, potentially fraudulent and that there, quote, may be alternatives is lowering the bar to an unprecedented level. To call into question someone's lifetime pension earnings without any justification is shameful. We have not seen the Comptroller's Office display this degree of unprofessional conduct since former Comptroller Hevesy insisted that the MTA kept 2 sets of books to garner headlines for his office. We respectfully ask that the Board renounce this unwarranted attack on our railroad. Thank you.
Thank you. Our last public speaker, Murray Bowden.
Last night I pulled 5 agendas off the internet so I would know what I needed to know today. The Metro-North report on the internet is the only one numbered correctly. Each page number on it refers to the page number in the report. That's the way it's supposed to be done. The shirt says, by the way, this is not Facebook and I am not your friend. I'm not your friend. I'm here to tell you about things. I'm the only person that goes to the New Jersey Transit Committee board meeting. I was there last week. Tomorrow, I'll be at the Port Authority committee meetings at the board meeting, and I speak. And next week, I'll be at the New Jersey Turnpike, and I'll speak at their board, too. Wake up. This is 2012. Chief? We know you're the chief. It's time you wore a suit like everybody else. And you don't need to display the uniform as an example of who you are. We know you're good. And for the rest of you sitting over there, you don't have to read a report that was issued last night. We don't need to know your numbers. If we didn't look at it the night before, there's no way we're going to ask you intelligent questions. And for those of you who put PowerPoint presentations up there, it's for your own aggrandizement and not ours. If you want us to look at your PowerPoint, post it on the internet the night before. And to the board, every one of you should have a computer in front of you. You don't have to actually know how to use it. You just have to show everybody else. If you look at today's New York Times, there's an article about the biggest newspaper chain in the United States. And the new editor says, it's likely that most of our papers will not be printed on paper in the near future. Paper's out. The Dutch don't even print their notes in their resolutions. Every member of the Dutch legislature has an iPad. Now, if we're going to move this unit forward, and we need to, then you need to move to electronic forms of information. I'm sorry, sir? I didn't hear that. Am I upsetting somebody? I meant to.
Okay, I need a motion to approve the minutes of October 24th.
So move.
Can I second? All in favor? Any opposed? I don't think there are any changes to the 2011 work plan. President's report, Metro North.
Okay. Thank you and good morning. I have a couple of items I want to highlight for the board this morning. First is on the Port Jervis line. We have some very good news on that. As I had mentioned last month, we are reinstituting rail service on November 28th. We have been able, through our conversations with New Jersey Transit, to fully return all the train service that we had prior to the hurricane. Will now be in service again. So we'll be operating 26 trains every weekday, 14 trains on the weekends. We will also, we will be, as I mentioned, starting on November 28th, we will have the timetables we brought out today. They'll be available on the internet as well as the paper timetables. We are also, for convenience of the Port Jervis customers, going to allow them a few fare privileges to start to encourage people to come back. So people who have a Hudson Line monthly ticket will be able to ride Port Jervis Line for the end of the month of November. People who had their Ramsey ticket, who have been driving down there, will be able to ride through November anywhere on the Port Jervis Line. And finally, if you have a December monthly ticket, you'll also be able to ride in November on the Port Jervis line. So those are a few relatively small things, but we think steps in the right direction for that. There will be a few adjustments to the train schedule because of we will still have a little bit of track work to do. We won't have both tracks in service between Harriman and Sloatsburg. I'm sorry, Harriman and Suffern. So there will be some trains will move, some off-peak trains will move up to 15 or 20 minutes. But overall, and trains will have a few more minutes of running time. But overall, the service we provided prior to the storm will now be back to what we're providing. And then in the middle of January, when we complete a little bit more of the work between November and January, we will be going right back to the schedule that we had in August on the Port Jervis line. Susan.
I just want to thank the Metro North staff and management for a yeoman job. Every time I go past there, you've got people working, and they're working hard and efficiently, and that's what allows this to come back on way ahead of schedule from what we thought. And I also have to say, it looks like you've cornered the market on ballast. Never seen such huge piles of ballast, but thank you very much for getting the train back.
Yeah. Thank you, Susan. And you're, sorry, Carl.
Yeah. I'd like to echo what Susan said, and I think that Howard deserves a lot of credit because he was the lead guy who got out there, and everybody followed suit right behind him, not only our people, but the contractors that they had put on the job who know the railroad and are familiar with how it operates, and I think this is what really cut the time frame back to where it is right now, and you should be congratulated, Howard. Thank you.
Well, thank you, but really I want to echo what both you said, and particularly Susan, thank all the employees at Metro North and all the people not only in our maintenance away department who did an absolutely terrific job, but in all the other departments, in our procurement department, in our planning department, operations, to get this, to get the bus service up and running. As you know, we create a bus system in a matter of days that provided interim service, and it cut across the entire organization. Different people pitching in towards basically the goals of restoring the service and providing the bus service. So we're very pleased about that. Second item is to mention that we're very proud on Saturday, November 5th, we had 100% on-time performance day. That was our third one of the year. All 417 trains arrived on time. Again, that's a real tribute to the employees of Metro North, and I just wanted to note that for you. With regard to the Northeaster that we had at the end of October, I sent the committee a memo on that. Basically, again, what I want to say is I was very proud of the work that was done by the Metro North employees in a really difficult situation, a storm that was not predicted correctly. Its timing was wrong, its intensity was wrong, and we had enormous amount of damage on the Metro North system with trees down and a host of other issues, and people worked through the night for 2 days so that we could basically got all our service back Monday morning from a storm that had well in excess of hundreds of trees came down in that storm, along with power wires and everything else. So it was really a terrific achievement. It turns out that Saturday we actually operated our trains 52% on time. I view that very positively. Unfortunately for our on-time performance statistics, that that affects them dramatically. But considering the conditions, that was really a very, very good effort on part of Metro North. And then finally, on the smoking ban. So yesterday, the New York State law prohibited smoking in both Metro North and Long Island Railroad outdoor ticketing, platform and boarding areas went into effect. This affects only the Metro North New York State stations. It does not affect the ones in Connecticut. We have a whole communication plan between the two railroads, communicating this on onboard announcements and station announcements and posters. So that is now in effect as of yesterday. And that completes my report.
Elena?
Okay. We go like this. Good morning. I would like to begin with a very positive note on Long Island Railroad ridership. As you know, we have felt that economic growth and opportunity on Long Island was lagging as we still were sluggish coming out of the recession. I am pleased to report for the first time we have true ridership growth year over year, 1.5%. So we hope that, of course, that trend will continue. I also would like to take a moment to brief the committee on some Long Island Railroad organizational changes. First and foremost, I know you'll join me in recognizing the outstanding job Ray Kenny has done as our Senior Vice President of Operations. I have asked Ray to take over a new position as Senior Vice President for Transportation and Infrastructure Planning. As the committee is well aware, Long Island Railroad has been under enormous pressure to work on both the East Side Access construction schedule, the East River Tunnel Total Track Replacement Program, as well now as Farley, as those moves go forward and impact Penn Station with construction. Ray and I have spent a lot of time looking at these issues, determining what the best approach for Long Island Railroad is to be able to address the transportation issues that get impacted by construction. And I have asked Ray to take this over on a full-time basis. He will have a group with him that it's already active on East Side Access planning. Now will become very active on how we evaluate the transportation options that are available while we try to progress this very important construction. As you know, East Side Access construction will be impacted by the East River Tunnel repairs. We're trying to make sure that we do that in the most effective and efficient way possible and of course mitigate the impacts on our customers. So Ray is going to bring his 38 years of experience at Long Island Railroad, bring that to bear on developing transportation alternatives that best protect our customers in terms of the service we deliver while we progress those three major construction projects, all focused on Penn. I have asked Mike Gelomino, who is currently our Chief Mechanical Officer, to become our Senior VP of Operations. Mike will bring his 29 years of experience at Long Island Railroad to bear as he focuses on transportation, maintenance of equipment, and engineering functions. We are going to, within that arrangement, form a new customer service unit. They'll be reporting to Joe Calderoni, Vice President of our Public Information and Government Relations. And we'll be working closely with Mike on how we ensure the best possible customer information throughout all of these issues that may impact them. I'm also pleased to note, and you'll see the announcement today, of course, of Joe Loda as our new executive director at the MTA. He has tapped our general counsel and vice president and secretary, Kathy Rinaldi, to join his staff as chief of staff. And I, in turn, have tapped Rich Gans to be our general counsel. So he is a deputy at Metro North, and he will come over to be our general counsel at Long Island Railroad. I also want to note that someone who has worked for the MTA in various capacities, both as my key chief of staff, worked here at the MTA on police merger issues and at Long Island Bus for many years. Mike Capone. Mike, where are you? Raise your hand here. Mike is retiring after 32 years, and we wish him well as he goes off into his next adventure. And I've asked Bill Norwich, who is also here and currently serves as our Eastside Access Fleet and Systems Design and Development person, to take over as Chief of Staff. So with these changes, I ask you to join me in a round of applause for each one who's taking a new position and for Mike who's retiring. I want to just highlight on my report one element in Long Island Railroad's freight strategy that I want to share with you. As you know, Long Island Railroad contracted out its freight operations in the mid-'90s. We developed a territorial agreement with the proposer that was selected, New York and Atlantic. They're a short line carrier, and they have been providing freight service on Long Island since the mid-'90s. We are moving toward a freight strategy that we think helps streamline some of our activity in Long Island City. We currently have a freight transload facility that is located actually by Arch Street, which is very close to where the Eastside Access midday yard will be. Our goal has been to disentangle freight from that activity so that freight trains don't have to go up into that area, rationalize some of the lead tracks. It will, I think, improve the construction opportunities for Eastside Access as well. We're going to relocate that freight yard to something known as the Wheel Spur Intermodal Freight Yard, and that is along Newtown Creek, but it is west of a current yard, Blissville, and it is west of the cutoff that currently takes freight up to the Arch Street facility. By relocating this slightly to the west and on the water, we gain the opportunity to have it be truly intermodal for marine activity as well. And we have about 7 bridges that cannot carry the freight weight that is necessary for current economical freight shipments. So by relocating the yard to the Wheel Spur area, a yard already owned by MTA, we will avoid bridge upgrades that would cost over $100 million. I do want to note that freight improvements are not in the MTA capital program. They're not covered under the Long Island program. They go directly to the state DOT for a freight budget they have. We've applied for a grant to be able to do some improvements in the Wheel Spur yard. So we think that this is a good move for freight. It'll help improve and streamline freight operations. It will take it out of Eastside Access construction area, which we think will help improve those construction opportunities. We'll give you any updates on it as it moves along. We think that it's very positive, and we've gotten a very good response from New York and Atlantic and some of the other freight players in the region. And that would conclude our report.
Okay. Michael.
Jim, I'd like to ask Helena one question.
Sure.
When was the last time you took a look at whether or not you ought to recapture the freight operation, whether there was profit in it or benefit in it for Long Island Railroad, whether there was advantage in it to customers of the Long Island Railroad?
We do go through a periodic review of our freight operations. I've actually spent quite a bit of time on understanding the dynamics of freight. I am pleased to say that freight use, there's a lot more freight use going on than people think. We operate a number of trains on our network with New York and Atlantic. There's a new rail terminal that's opened on Long Island that will, I think, add to some of the freight movements. We can give you a little briefing on it. In terms of actual Long Island Railroad operation, I would say that we're trying to devote our resources, energies, and capital program to our rider base, our customer base. We think that the freight network can be better served with the private operation. They actually have a great understanding of how freight moves across the United States, what are the important key points for transferring freight to a short line carrier. Probably one of the most effective things we've done to preserve freight on Long Island is to make sure we're tapping into that private sector market. We have a good briefing on it.
Okay. Michael.
Yes, good morning. Well, we are continuing to analyze the rebaselining schedule for the East Side Access. The work is proceeding vigorously, and I just wanted to share with you a few things. The Queens tunnels are actually the Yardley tunnel, that is the longest one. It comes kind of in the middle blue and then continues the green. The green is actually the progress since the last meeting, about 290 feet since the last meeting. It's over 50% done. And the A tunnel, we completed about 340 feet, again, shown in green. And we expect to finish that about beginning of December, end of November, beginning of December, and then move on to the next. Work in the Manhattan tunnels. This is the Yardley tunnel, just a picture to see. We have employed here a precast system, so it looks quite impressive. It's done, and we're now, in fact, building the walls in the U section that the Yardley tunnel is going to end. The other work in Queens is the underpass, the Northern Boulevard, and what we did there is in fact, about to complete the freezing of the ground. If you recall, this was kind of a short tunnel, about 120 feet long, under the IND and the foundation of the entrance above. And we are about to start in December our excavation. The cavern are moving along. This is a picture of the West Cavern. We are about 80 to 85% finished there, and once this is done, preparation is in place to start excavation and mucking. This is the eastbound cavern. This is a kind of a neat picture of the rebar installation. This is all done with forms that move along, and this is actually a picture of the waterproofing membrane and, in fact, the welding of it. So it's kind of a neat way to figure it out. This is the cross passageways between the eastern and western. We started to install. We blasted through. We are installing now the ribs in order to form that. This is the tail tracks, the tunnels, and again the waterproofing, and this is the rebar installation. I can also tell you that one of the wellways, this is the first one that we completed, in fact, the concreting of it. So this is the wellways are where our high-speed escalators are going into. So with that, basically I'm done. And any questions?
Any questions? Thank you. Chief Cohen.
I have one brief question. Yeah, there's a report, lost time injury rate. I just noticed for the last several months it's been above the BLS rate, the average. Are we concerned with that? What are we doing?
Yeah, we are very concerned about it. Actually, I'm doing right now an in-depth analysis to see, because this is a blended thing, so I need to understand exactly which contractor has exceeded that and the reason why, and that's something of great concern with us. So we are looking at that very carefully at this point. I don't have the answers. I expect to have them next time around at I think, December 19th meeting, I believe it's so thereabouts,
okay.
Or 18th.
Thank you.
Okay.
Chief Cohen. Oh, Jim.
Michael, excuse me. Is it reasonable to assume that as we get out of the tunneling mode, that, should we say, unforeseen occurrences are less likely to take place, and that both from the standpoint of cost and also standpoint of time, that things become more to use the word routine would not be exactly
Nothing
right,
is routine on East Side Access. I wish that I would be in a position to actually say, oh, we're over our geotechnical risks, so now there are no more risks. The risks that continue to loom on the horizon relate to the fact that we are working in Queens in a very active yard. And now that's why we're doing also a lot of the rebaselining has to do with how we coexist with Amtrak. And that's still a risky operation. I do not know exactly where we stand. One of the things that we have to be very careful on in new territory for whatever reason as far as weather goes. So the risks that, as you can see, we have floods and we have all kind of other events that are much more often. You know, we have now every other 2 months we have a 100-year flood. That's not a good thing. And that's predictable in the long range, but not necessarily. We have to now account for that as other possible issues. In Queens, I think that this is the major risk that we have in Queens, working around the operating railroads, and that's going to be a major endeavor. So that risk is not gone. In Manhattan, as we move along, this is a more predictable operation. Yet we do have still certain issues because not all the blasting is done. We do have another major blasting around 55th Street, and we still need to blast the caverns. If you've been down there, what you are at normally when you look at it, you are at you need to blast down 40 feet in order to complete that. So we're not out of the woods yet. I think that probably in about a year or so we'll be in a much better position, because at that point I hope that we'll be done with the geotechnical and we will be solving the issue in Queens. So the two together, I'm not that, I don't believe we're out of the woods in terms of risks, quite frankly. So
that's very helpful.
Michael, what role, if any, does capital construction now play in construction work, in fixing platforms on the trains, doing construction work in repairs of railroad stations, yards, and the like?
None,
Why?
to my knowledge. No one added it to my portfolio as far as I know, and at this point I'm pretty busy with what I do, so that's where we are.
Seems to me a waste of time. We have resources that have been demonstrated to be excellently utilized by capital construction with enormous skill. I don't understand why they're not doing all of it. That's just my view.
Any other questions? Chief Cohen.
Good morning. For the month, we were down 1 incident, 42 versus 43. However, we were up 3 robberies, 11 versus 8, but we were down in grand larcenies by 4. On the East Long Island Railroad, we were up 5, 24 versus 19. We did have 4 robberies versus 4 robberies last year, and we had 14 larcenies versus 10 larcenies last year. One robbery we had in Wyandanch, we made an arrest on that. We have an open case in Westbury. It was an attempt of a phone larceny. Mineola, we had a robbery. It was a forced case, but it was domestic in nature. We know the individual responsible, and we are looking for him as we speak. And then we had one in the Kew Gardens in the parking lot, which was also forced. Of the larceny, I just want to note we had 2 incidents in October in the Spingock Yard. We set up a surveillance, and then on the 9th of this month, we arrested an individual, and he's been charged with those 2 cases in October, the current one that he did, and then he confessed to one that he did in June as well. So we closed out 4 cases with that 1 arrest. On the Metro North end, we had a good month, 13 versus 21, down 8 incidents, or 38%. We're still up 2 incidents for the year. Unfortunately, we did have 5 incidents of robbery. We did make 2 arrests on those. We had one in Grand Central. It was actually in the Rite Aid. It was a forcible shoplifting. We made an arrest on that. And then one at about 125th Street, where a phone was taken, and we made an arrest on that one as well. We had 2 attempts up in Westchester, and one at Williamsbridge, and one at White Plains Station. Those remain open. And then we had a robbery at Botanical Gardens where a cell phone was taken. So of the 9 robberies that were involved in Metro North and Long Island Railroad, 5 of those involved attempt or taking of a cell phone. So that seems to be the driving theme. If anybody has any questions?
Chief, I noticed your oral report on the arrests. If you will recall, at the last board meeting, I specifically asked that arrest information be included in the books, simply so that we can get a handle on whether or not, as crime increases or decreases, the arrest statistics come along with that. If you could do that in the future, that would be appreciated.
Certainly, I'll just be guided by the board on what they want in the book. So. Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, information items.
Okay, so we have the budget information that had been previously distributed, and then we have the holiday schedule. This lays out the service that we'll be providing between now and the end of the year. I think, as many of you know, this is the busiest time on the railroad. We have the busiest day of the year is the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and we have a huge volume of discretionary riders who ride Metro North during this time period. So what we've laid out to you, excuse me, is the service we'll be providing between now and the end of the year. All of it is tailored to the specific travel markets, which vary depending on the event during this time period. Similar to what we've done in previous years, as our ridership has gone up over the past year, we've expanded the program a little bit, but it's the same basic concept that we've always used of encouraging ridership, providing seats for everybody, and collecting all the tickets. And those are our 3 driving goals in this program. So we're happy to answer any questions on that.
Questions?
I did not see it in either of the railroads' analysis of the holiday schedule, but on the 24th of December, which is a Saturday, the Jets and Giants are playing each other at MetLife Stadium. So it's not a Sunday 1 o'clock, which is when the usual one ride is available. I was wondering if it was going to be made available that Saturday.
It is.
It is.
So our special train will be.
Okay, so that Long Island Railroad customers then connect at Penn, and you're connected Grand Central and up and up.
Oh, we have
further.
a 1-through train. We have a football train, and that will run as well.
Right, so we have the connection also, because we assume we have a larger crowd. Hopefully, they'll take the train going in that direction.
Yes.
Okay.
And we, as soon as the schedule came out over the summer, we started negotiating with NJT and to add that as even though it's not a Sunday.
Right.
And they were amenable, so we were able to wrap that up before we got Labor Day.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Elena?
And I will just echo Howard's comments. Our staff summary is also included at page 35, and it details our holiday schedule. Our goals are the same. We try to identify where the holidays fall on the calendar and adjust extra service, the length of cars, and the number of people collecting tickets on cars to adjust for the shoppers, holiday travelers, and those going in for special events in the city. I would note that on the eve of Thanksgiving, we have a no alcohol ban as well. Any questions?
Okay. No questions. Next is procurements. We have 2 non-competitive procurements for Metro North totaling $635,820. Can I get a motion and a second, please? Second. Okay, discussion?
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I assume we're starting with the list of non-competitive. I have a few. Sorry. On the list of non-competitive, A1, Powell Electrical.
Right. Yes.
I don't quite understand, maybe you could quickly explain, why was this not competitively bid?
Let me just confirm this. Yeah, this was originally, they are the original manufacturer of the equipment, John, and so it was felt that they were the most suited. It's unique to their equipment. This is part of an overall substation, so it's felt that's why we needed to go with them. Is Anthony Bombays here? Can you add anything to that, Anthony?
There's no generic switchgear? And there's no generic substitute today? Thank you.
On the same contract, and I will make the same point with each of the succeeding ones, sole sourcing, which is what we're doing here, is anti-competitive. It doesn't help business in New York. It doesn't help us reduce costs. In this context, can we please bear in mind in the future that where we have contracts for software or other events, that they be done on a basis where there is some provision made that either we get a license in the future if we renew, or that there be an ascertainment that there is a generic or other substitute. This is bad for the railroad, bad for New York, bad for our economy.
We understand that sole sources or non-competitive software is something that's not a norm. We don't like to make it anymore. What we do right now is try as much as we can to set up a vanilla or a generic piece of software in all of our. We will continue to do that. We understand that, and I will make sure that my staff, I will get that to my staff.
Yeah, let me just add to that. In both these cases, we're looking at basically continuing efforts that started over 10 years ago. So I think, as Anthony said, our goal now is to do exactly what you said, is so that we're not caught in these situations on an ongoing basis going forward. But in this second case, this is a system that's extremely old, and it's a proprietary system. And again, there are no other choices in terms of how to keep that system going until we replace it.
But you make the point on the second one that the system as it's existing now, quote, has become vulnerable to failures, unquote. Seems to me that if you have that kind of vulnerability, you ought to look for an alternative.
No,
I accept your point that these are old. I accept your point that there are things you cannot do to remedy the past. All I am seeking to do is to emphasize that for the future, this is not healthy for anybody.
I think we agree.
Well,
questions?
One last question. On the second one, the Grand Central Terminal,
right?
On that, and this also may relate to Long Island Railroad as well. What is being done after I think it's 7 years this contract can be? What will happen after that?
No, it's four. I think it's.
Is it 4
4
plus,
years?
It's 4 plus 2 and then 1. It can be.
No, I think it's no. That's Shine Bachman. This is a 4-year contract. We are looking to answer the question.
Yeah, to answer it anyway.
Yeah. So we are looking at a whole new information system at Grand Central, possibly tied to something with a private sponsor. The system we have, which involves a host of different elements. It's the big board in Grand Central. It's all the gate curtains. It's all the monitors. We are looking. That system was built at now 10 years old. We're looking to modify that whole system. This will give us the time to be able to come up with a new system, I said, possibly with a third-party sponsor.
Commissioner Myrtla mentioned, would we own the software? Or would
In the future, we are planning to follow the approach that
Okay.
he laid out going forward.
Okay.
Wait, Howard, just going in order then. So number 2, the ComNet.
Right.
Just for my understanding, this was done non-competitive. And just for number 2, and I'm going to just go in order.
Well, let me just ask that. Hold on a second. Like, when we first awarded the contract, was it a competitive bid? It was a competitive solicitation 10 years ago, or 12 years ago.
And then, okay, I think we're all in agreement here, and I don't think you're in disagreement, but...
the time where we can change out the whole system, and again, that'll be definitely a competitive system.
Okay, because it does concern me, and I think the general consensus is when there are no bidders, it's just like a big change order that was not competitively done. And I note that you were able to negotiate a modest reduction, but I don't know what that's negotiated off of vis-a-vis what's competitively appropriate. The prior maintenance contract, but there are efficiencies counterbalanced with inflation, so I don't know what it all means without the context. But I think we're all in agreement. What I started with, I think Commissioner Merdler picked
Agreed.
up on. And all right, and then,
Wait, don't
so
you
I
need
have a
action?
question.
I think
Yeah.
you need action.
Can I get all in favor of the two non-competitive procurements?
So, aye.
Any opposed? Carried. We have one Metro North competitive procurement that you'll find on page 39 for $30,440,320. Can I get a motion?
I think it's 45. It's on 45.
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple questions on that.
I'd like to get a motion in a second.
So
and
moved.
then
Oh, I thought
discussion.
you got that.
Second?
Second.
Okay, discussion.
Yeah, similarly, I note that in the third paragraph on page 45, it mentions that they have unique equipment expertise, knowledge, and qualifications. What are, perhaps someone can just quickly educate us, so what are the unique qualities?
So, yeah, let me just explain this procurement. This is an important procurement for both railroads.
So I don't interrupt you, can you add in also the understanding of the cost? And maybe I don't want to confuse the issue, I just figured
Cost,
to say it at
Jeff,
once. The fact that for the next 7 years is $60 million when the first 5 years was 20. So doesn't seem to add up to me. I thought maybe that was part of
I don't,
the story.
that I don't see, but let me come back to that if I may. This was a procurement, again, we much of this is a repeat to what we just talked about conceptually. We did a competitive procurement to two railroads to buy a number of ticket vending and ticket office machines in the late 1990s. And so between us, we probably have upwards, I would guess, of 1,000 machines or so, 700 machines. What we then did was, and so Scheitenbachmann won that order, and the machines have performed extremely well subsequently over the years. We then, as part of the initial order, we had a warranty agreement with them as well as a maintenance contract with them. In 2005, we said that we wanted to change how we did maintenance with Scheitenbachmann, and we wanted to go to a life cycle maintenance approach, which we had not been following. We had been following repair when it was broken. And that has worked extremely well. That lasted for 5 years. Where we now stand is as follows, is that these are their machines, John, and so whoever asked me, Ira, that these are their machines. They are the only ones who have the capability to do the work on the machines that, on their own machines. So we negotiated with them a contract that was structured with a base of 4 years, I believe, or is it? Yeah, 4 years with two options. The reason we did that is because, as you know, the MTA has an initiative looking at new fare collection approaches. So depending on the success of that and the progression of that initiative, we have the ability to stop this contract at different time points. So we structured it that way. The second thing we did is we also took another look between the two railroads at how we are using their maintenance efforts. We modified the maintenance efforts. We put in performance penalties and incentives. And in the end of the day, we were able to reduce our annual costs by about 20% a year. So we're very pleased with this negotiation that it's going to cost us less to maintain the machines, at the same time, mind you, that they're getting significantly older. So I view this as an extremely positive negotiation and contract with Scheidt & Bachmann. Jeff, to your question, I'm not following your numbers.
I misread. I was looking at the 2005 number rather than the current number of $30 million. But on that note, the 20%, what's that in real dollars?
Anthony?
20%.
2011 money, I have to have the chart.
Okay, let's get back to you. We'll get Jeff. It's in the hundreds, if not $100,000 to $1 million a year. But we'll get you exact number.
Chuck?
Look on page 48 under alternatives. As I read it, there were, still are, a limited group of vendors for these kind of systems. This contract is 13 years old. No attempt was considered to have competitive bidding for the maintenance. You looked at it in two lights. They do it or we do it, not a competitive bid. Now, you obviously were able to do a pretty good negotiation, if not an excellent negotiation. But my point is simply and solely this. If we don't try and stimulate competition, we're going to be in trouble. People are not going to compete. There are going to be a diminution of jobs. You're going to have all sorts of bidding problems. You're going to have all sorts of procurement problems here. And here was an opportunity to let out the maintenance contract. If the maintenance contract could have been let out at the same number or a lesser number, then it would have made sense. If it couldn't be, then what you did was not only excellent, it was superb.
Yeah. Anthony, do you want to speak to the issue of potential other bidders for this maintenance contract? There is no one.
That's the point, to give another person a crack at a job. It's 20 to 30 years since anyone other than Bombardier or Kawasaki has built a railroad car in this town, with one other exception, as I understand it. Wrong, bad, not good for New York, not good for business. I will vote against it in the future.
Well, I just to continue, I don't know about the car manufacturing, but back to page 48, and I quote, "There's a limited market for vendors," and skipping a few words, "and there are no other firms that can provide the full range of services." And trying to read all this, trying to pick out the key words, just to follow up on Chuck's concept, could we split up this contract, this extension, the full range of services, and split it up so that the proprietary services that only because we're stuck where we are, we're stuck with this company, we negotiate it down, but then the other services that may exist under the definition of full perhaps be competitively bid out.
I believe we looked at the full range of services as far as, let's say, the software and the hardware. We did an analysis, as Howard asked us to do. I could provide that analysis to the board. We looked at doing it that way versus just sticking on one umbrella.
Yeah. Let me just say again, I want to say 2 points on this one. I think one of the issues that we're very concerned when we give a maintenance contract out for ticket machines is the reliability of these machines. These are critical to the functioning of both Metro-North and the Long Island Railroad. And that over the years, Scheidt & Bachmann, these machines have done extremely well. So one of the issues you would have, John, if we could find Company X out there to do hardware while Scheidt & Bachmann still does software, we are adding in a significant risk element in terms of how we would deliver the service to our customer. So that would be if that company even existed, and that's even viable. But I think the more important point, if I may...
Wait, Howard, wouldn't the market dictate that?
They'll tell you if the company is available or not. But the issue is, I guess what I'm saying is, let's assume this company existed. The market, they come out and they say, oh, we can do it. You would enter a significant element of risk add in to our daily operation of these machines, because you'd have two different people between hardware and software who are doing the maintenance. But the point I want to go back to is that, again, these were decisions. What we sit here today on this one as the other two, decisions were reflected really 10 years ago. And when we made these judgments, one of the efforts now in the whole fare collection effort the MTA is leading is open systems, where we're getting out of all of this, where we're not beholden to OEMs from the past. And that's an approach we fully endorse. But as we sit here today, when we look at these contracts, that's not a choice we have. And so what we're trying to do is move us along till we get to a different point in time, where we can be doing what's being asked and being said here.
Should we need to, and I appreciate this is a long time ago and the new open system makes sense. If we're stuck going to a proprietary system in the future, I would only suggest that we have longer-term contracts with options.
Mm-hmm. Yes, agreed.
It's just sitting here today as, new members, I do know, as you put in, that a percent of the request to current amount is nearly 37%, percent of modifications to original amount, 416+%. These numbers jump out, and all we can do is ask, and but it seems to me, I'm just surprised that there hasn't been a competitor, maybe some young, hungry guys at that company who split off, some type of fashion, some competition hasn't developed in the last 30 years, or X number of years. And that, hence the genesis of the question. I mean, when you see it on the page, it just jumps out, begging for questions. And I thank you for your answers, but I think we all share the frustration. We'll keep that in mind for other things.
Okay.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Okay, we have two ratifications from Metro North, totaling $13,017,453, and we'll find that on page 58.
Right, and these are...
Can I get a motion?
Oh, sorry.
And a second? Discussion.
Okay, so just briefly, these are two more ratifications for the Port Jervis line work. This was the efforts that the chairman had given me the emergency power so he could get the work done. The first one is with AECOM. They did the design work. We had them working almost a day after the storm. They did all the assessments, the design work, did an excellent job for Metro North on this project. And the second is Halmar. Halmar did the construction work. They will be out there between now and June. This was the award of the contract. And let me explain one thing on this apropos our previous conversation. In both cases, while these are ratifications, we did competitive bidding and a competitive procurement before we awarded each contract. So in the first case, we had 3 or 4 firms who went out with pre-qualified firms. We awarded the contract to AECOM. When it came to Halmar, we again did the same thing. It was a bid. Halmar was the low bid on the project. We then awarded it to them, and they started working in October.
Can I just ask a question? Have we passed by Summit?
No, that's a Long Island.
No, we're going back to
That's
that.
Long Island, okay.
Right.
The page of the staff report you're on, please, Howard.
58, John.
Yeah, I had one quick question on this. On page 58, toward the bottom of the paragraph, all the above firms, you talk about the second sentence. After considering the remaining 4 proposers' technical capability, experience, project plan, and availability of staff, what about price?
Yeah, that was an over. That should have been in there. It should
Well,
have
we're
been.
reading it.
Should
All
have
right.
been in there.
And then, by the way, they did an excellent job, so I'm not commenting on that. Thank you for that. I'm just trying to follow the procedure to be sure we're getting our money's worth. So then, on October 21st, the cost proposal was submitted. When was the work completed?
I'm sorry, where are you?
I'm on the 2 paragraphs down, flipping the page,
Yeah.
the first full paragraph on page 5.
So the work started on September 2nd. Anthony, do you want to explain that timeline?
ACOM will continue to do the work until the construction is completed. So if we go into 2012, ACOM, as far as their construction management services for the project, will continue on a much, much diminished level, but into 2012. Right now, Halmar is almost complete, is how it's said. We'll reopen the railroad on
Okay, and then the Halmar, second to last paragraph on 5.9, the bids were opened on October 11th, and the bid was 9% lower than the engineer's estimate. Whose engineer is that?
our internal engineers and
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I just have a question to be sure that I understand something. The work that will continue after the trains are back operating, but we still have to shore up some of the shoreline, and is that not covered in this? Are
No.
you doing another?
No,
Okay, I
that's
think you need.
covered in this.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we have three. We have three Long Island competitive procurements totaling $283,578. Can I get a motion to move?
Approve.
Second?
So move.
Discussions. Chuck? Yes.
Andrews and IDEA agreed to extend the contract with no change in billing rates. Did Summit agree to do so?
I actually have to ask Dennis Mann. Is Dennis here? Oh, Cindy. Cindy, why don't you come forward? Yeah.
Chart, bottom of page 57. The sentence reads, Andrews and IDEA agreed to extend the contract with no change in billing rates. The question is, did Summit agree to extend its contract with no change in billing rates? So they didn't agree to extend the rates? Why did you select them? Sure. Why did you extend them when they said they were going to increase the rate, when the others said they wouldn't? Mr. Chairman, I intend to vote, please record me as voting in the negative on this matter. I can't hear what's going on.
Can you explain it to me?
We went through a very long competitive negotiation, including the requirements from other agencies in the MTA network. And while that was going on, the contract with Summit, the incumbent, had expired. So we're referring on page 57 to a retroactive period where we need the board approval to fund that contract and approve Summit's continued services while we were negotiating over the competitive procurement. And the commissioner has raised the point that the competitors were willing to hold rates and Summit had an increase during that 7-month period. But my understanding, Cindy, and you have to help me, is that in the overall competitiveness, when you took everything into account, both the retroactive portion and the going forward portion, that Summit was more economical. There's a portion in New York City where a prevailing wage rate applies for security officers, so that while that rate had gone up, so while we were negotiating in the competitive procurement, we have now this retroactive period, we were covering the adjustment for the prevailing rate. I think in the overall, the going forward period and the retroactive period, Summit came out more economical.
So in the end, this is the
Most competitive selection for both the current period and the retroactive period.
Permit me to explain, if I may, why I have been as dogmatic as I have. I have a concern. It is an abiding concern that has been mine since I joined this board last December in 3 areas. Sole source, how we compete and that people understand it's a for real competition and that they have to help, and that we start following the kind of procedures, in my view, the City of New York has had for quite some time. You can't say to somebody, competitor A will extend the rate, competitor B will extend the rate, and the public says, well, number 3 didn't, but we gave it to him anyway. It's wrong. It is the appearance of impropriety, not the impropriety itself, that I have a problem with.
Well, I just want to address that it was important for us to ensure that the prevailing rate was paid. We wanted to meet the compliance with New York City requirements for prevailing rate. And it wasn't clear that at the rates the competitors were offering that they were going to meet the prevailing wage rate established.
Sorry, are you saying that the competitors, by agreeing to extend their rates, would be coming in under the prevailing rate?
Cindy, you have to address the right.
But my question is, were the extension offers by Andrews and IDEA such that if they had been accepted, they would have been below the prevailing rate? That's what I thought.
Right.
But I think, but let me, hold it. Let me ask the question here. All 3 of these companies were employed by MTA at the same time. So it wasn't as if there was one company, Summit was the only company. All 3 companies, if I'm reading this correctly, were employed in different pieces of MTA security at the same time. Yes. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. All 3 contracts expired at the same time?
We've been trying to be coterminous.
Right. So the intent was, instead of having, what I'm reading here, the intent was, instead of having 3 companies do different pieces, the intent was to have one company do all the pieces.
Correct.
Am I? Yes. Okay. During the period of time from which the original contract expired, until the time that the new contract went into effect, 2 of the companies had higher rates than the other company.
Correct.
Because and as a result of that, they met the prevailing wage rate while the other company did not.
Yes.
So since the other company figured out it can't violate the law, it could not agree to something that it was going to violate the law to do, so it had to raise its rate to that purpose.
Correct.
Then from there, if I'm reading it correctly, all 3 companies bid on the entire package, meeting the prevailing wage rate, and Summit was the lowest bidder of the 3.
Correct.
Am I reading all of this correctly?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman,
That's
as
what I thought.
explained by Commissioner Pally, I understand this a little differently, and I withdraw my comment.
That's how
I
I
will
was
vote against.
Right. We had to get Summit
Right,
to
I understand.
meet the prevailing rate.
I understand.
Okay.
That's what I thought.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Oh, can I just make one statement?
Sure.
I vote yes, but I'm not on the Summit issue. Leave the Summit issue alive for the moment. On number 1, okay, which is the issue of the FCC spectrum licenses for positive train control.
Yes.
This is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. okay? Without a doubt. I mean, I'm not blaming the railroad. It's not the railroads. Right. Well, that's part of it. The other part of it is that the federal government requires us to do something and then does not give us the means to do it. We got to go buy it from a private company, otherwise we're in violation of the law, and pay them an amount of money which is not set by anybody. This is, without a doubt, the stupidest thing I've ever read. If it wasn't required by law, I think we'd all vote no. But I understand why we're doing it. But, you know, we should call on our congressional delegation in any way possible to change this process, because this is only part of the process.
Right.
Metro-North's going to get hit with the other piece, which is going to cost them another arm and a leg, and somebody's are making money over the safety of our customers. And that is absolutely wrong in that regard. The federal government wants us to do this. They should give us the means to do it with and not make us buy it from somebody else. It's craziness. But understanding we're required by law to do it, I will vote yes, but I would urge the two presidents to call on our congressional delegation to change this as quickly as possible.
And I would respond that we have had a very aggressive program of interacting with members of Congress, Senate and House side, as well as direct meetings with the FCC and the FTA, urging just what you said, that if you want us to comply with the Rail Safety Act, help us by giving us a public safety set-aside for spectrum needed to operate positive train control. We have met across-the-board resistance to that, and this has been a multi-year effort. We will continue going at it, and we will continue to urge Congress to be responsive. As you know, there's a bill pending. It's actually not even in bill form. I don't even think they've gotten that far, for a police spectrum set aside, and even the police have not been successful. Law enforcement has not been successful in getting the set aside they need. So we felt that it was prudent to enter the marketplace. We did enter. We successfully have been able to purchase this spectrum. As you know, we must continue to be aggressive in acquiring spectrum to complete the spectrum network we need, particularly for the northern counties. We're moving forward in that regard now, putting together a channel plan to identify what are the slices of spectrum we need to fill out in the northern counties. At the same time, we will continue our own efforts in Washington to have the law recognize that there should be a spectrum set aside.
And just, Mitch, to add to what Helena said, we have been very, very active in also looking at the issue of what the date is, and have requested and had adopt a position requesting on behalf of the commuter railroads to move the date from 2015 to 2018. We've been very aggressive in looking for funding, and that has not been successful.
I have one question on this same thing. If the law has changed, it doesn't look like it will, but if the law has changed, whether it's extended or the requirements are made to be a little bit different, in other words, maybe more broader, will we need the spectrum even under a different system? And if we buy this and then don't need it in the future, can we sell these? And in other words, are we buying? We're now buying something for positive train control. If we are successful in changing the law, what happens with what we bought?
We will continue to own it. We will have entered the marketplace. We believe we'll need it. Any of the spectrum that we don't need, and we'll develop that through a channel plan, we would be able to market as well. However, we are working closely with Amtrak and New Jersey Transit. There may be different licensing agreements that we want to enter into with them if we have spectrum that goes beyond our needs. It would be important for the four carriers to have a spectrum management plan that covers our entire region. So that will be our goal.
Regardless of PTC?
No, for PTC.
Well, but my question was if PTC was changed or we were given an out from PTC.
I don't think that those are realistic opportunities in the future. It is the law. As Howard mentioned, we are working hard to ask that the law be extended because nationwide carriers are having trouble meeting the deadlines but we don't anticipate that Congress will walk away from the rail safety measures they put in place in 2008.
Okay.
Right, Mr. Chairman. Okay. So on the AmeriCom, so the RFP was published, and it was sent to 7 firms. You got 3 back. Basically, you only got 1 back because the other 2 really didn't respond to what you needed. So this RFP process led to 1 respondent. Did this surprise you?
No, we have spent quite a bit of time analyzing spectrum issues. It is regulated by the FCC, but it is clearly a market where there's lots of activity that takes place, lots of challenges, and we were not surprised that we had limited response.
Had you considered rebidding since you only had 1 respondent?
No, because
reaching out?
We actually know who the license holders are, and we did get, a response from those holders.
Did they do other work for us, AmeriCom?
No.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We also have various agency reports of operation, finance, ridership, and capital program. Does anyone have any questions on any of those reports? If none,
Yeah, well, I do. On the financial report, there's 2 charts about head count for both railroads, and they're different. There may be reasons for that, but Metro North still has an issue with training. That seems to be a large amount of people. That's page 83. For Metro North, it's page 83. And for Long Island Railroad, there's for info technology, and I think that's page 130?
Yes,
Marketing,
130.
Development, Public Affairs. I just don't. For Long Island Railroad, the question. For Metro North, I was asking about training and what's being done to fill those positions. I had asked that before. I noticed there's some filling. And for Long Island Railroad, it's info technology and market development, public affairs. I'm just wondering if the lack of people there is something. Where are those people supposed to be, or that they're lacking? Is it in those areas? Is that something to do with information provided to the passengers, or where? That's for Long Island Railroad. I'm sorry. Metro North, there seems to...
Right. You're speaking of the 6 vacancies?
Right. Which is a large percentage of the total.
Right. We are actively working to fill those vacancies, Ira. One of the things we know is that we've got to focus on training with the turnover in the workforce, and so we have a significant focus on that. So we are working to fill them. This is as of September 30th. I don't know if we're where we stand today. We're actually looking to expand training, so there may still be some vacancies till we get them up to snuff. But I think we have a few months till it'll take us till we can fill that.
Chuck?
Howard, on page 62, you indicate that maintenance of equipment in 2011 was considerably higher than in 2010, and I can understand that in light of your New Haven problems, which you've been struggling through. But then I look at page 83, and I see that we have far less maintenance personnel, 44 less in maintenance of equipment, 73 in maintenance of way. Are we doing anything to fill those vacancies?
Yes. The answer is, again, we are doing so. We have been hit, as you probably know, as our workforce is aging, and as we come closer to 2013, the rates of retirement are significantly increasing. So we have that going on, and we had, starting a few years ago, we had very high vacancy rates in some of our operating divisions, and we've been working to try to bring those numbers down. So as of now, we're making progress. We're not fully there by any means, but we are working towards so that we have a full complement of people.
What are we doing to try and recruit people into that area?
Well,
with all the job comments that are out every day.
Is Ray here? You could speak to it. Ray, can you just speak to that for a minute?
Of those 44 vacancies, that's an annual look, and some of them aren't even budgeted to start till the last quarter. But of those 44, we had approximately 30 electricians and machinists start either last week or this week. So we're actually looking to fill them. On a recruitment basis, our jobs are posted for the internet for anyone to apply, and then when we get specific job titles like electricians, we have targeted sources where we go to recruit. But you got to put this in context that some of those positions are drawn from a budget. It's an annual budget, and not all those jobs are funded right away. So, and there's also the give and take of a substantial workforce, and you're going to get some vacancies. So I think we're doing a pretty good job of filling them. As I said, 30 of those 44 are filled.
I am not quarreling with that. The governor of this state has been making a major effort to try and fill jobs, create jobs, get people employed. Here we have an opportunity to do it, and I would hope you would continue doing what you're doing, and that is to try and recruit people, give them an opportunity to work, and help perhaps pull us out of the mess that we're in.
Jim.
Thank you.
Ira still had his question.
Yeah, well, there was actually a question about Long Island Railroad and its head count, and specifically there's two categories I'd asked about. I think it was marketing, development, public affairs, and information technology, although it's not. What I was wondering is who, the people that do information for passengers, in other words, the email alerts and that type of thing, where are they in this chart?
There's let me answer, if I could answer that question. First, just on the vacancies themselves.
Right.
In information technology, those are the vacancies there are 5.
Right.
Basically normal attrition. Those are primarily entry-level positions that we're in the process of filling. On market development, public affairs, you'll see that there's about approximately, let's see, that's 7 vacancies as of the end of this report. You might recall in the July plan, President Williams had announced a new communications initiative with expanded PIO office, et cetera. So the board approved that funding. We're aggressively moving forward with shaping that new expanded office. And so some of the vacancies you see here they've been put into the budget. We're in the process of hiring. I believe we're about to bring those people on board. And you will see that that vacancy number will go down in the next, hopefully, the next report or two.
Okay. Thank you.
Jim.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On MDBF, I assume it's okay to talk about that at this point on page 64? Or are we going to have that separately discussed? If so, I'll wait.
No.
No? Okay. It seems to me that we've got to address the numbers here, at least for year-to-date MDBF dropping significantly below our goal at 103,000 versus for year-to-date versus 125 for the year. And in particular, if I'm reading this correctly, the performance of the M2s, 4s, and 6s, which are both significantly below their goals and below 2010. It seemed to me that equipment issues don't necessarily correspond to weather issues. There may be some tie, and I can understand that too, but do we need to be concerned that New Haven fleet has just fallen off a cliff here?
Yeah, I am concerned. I'm concerned again this winter as I was concerned last winter. We had a very, very bad winter. The Red Fleet got hammered by the snow, the 2s, the 4s, the 6s. We had an extremely high shop count. However, we now have 4 MA train sets on the property. We hope to have a couple more train sets before the end of the year. That will give us some breathing room, but basically our mechanical folks, John Kesich and company, are going to have to keep the Red Fleet running for at least another full winter, our entire fleet. So yes, I do have concerns if we were to have another winter like we had last winter. Yes, I do have concerns that our shop counts would be high. In turn, our conscious compliance would drop, and we would have more standees. So do I have concerns? Yes, I do, but there is light at the end of the tunnel with the fact that the M8s are showing up, and they continue to show up. So it's good news ahead, but I am concerned for this winter, yes.
I
most
would
definitely.
just, Jim, echo that to what Bob said. So we are definitely concerned, and I've said that before here, that we are very concerned about this upcoming winter on the New Haven line because of the condition of the fleet. The numbers you're looking at, I believe, the year-to-date has largely been driven on the New Haven line by what happened last winter when we had all those cars out of service because of the ingestion of snow. When you look at the MDBF for the other fleets, we're well above target, and we're very pleased with that. So the focus continues to be on the New Haven, and as you know, and others here, the way those cars are designed, they ingest snow. That's how they're designed in the winter. And if we get a bad winter again, we will be faced with significant issues on the New Haven line cars.
Okay, I was just, not to belabor it, just I was concerned that there might be other mechanical issues that were just undermining the reliability of that fleet altogether.
Any other questions? Okay, our next meeting is Monday, December the 19th. I ask for a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Any opposed?